Hi. So today we're going to be looking at depth and perspective. So depth and perspective are the things that make it look like we can see things that are further away or make it look like they're closer. Perspective also kind of tells us where things are in space. So we're going to look at both of those. We've done line, shape, and color. And all three of those can help us give the illusion of depth and give us a sense of perspective, okay? So we'll look at a couple of things. Now, a lot of times when we do our drawings, we're going to start with some sort of horizon. Horizon is part of the word horizontal, and we went over that when we talked about lines. Horizontal means side to side. So our horizon is that line way off in the distance. It may have a hill in it. You may try and draw yours flat, but that's the line far away where the sky meets the ground. The sky meets the ground. So there's lots of things that we can do for perspective. Sometimes, if we've got a line, we can just add a shape that stops at that line. So when it stops, when it's interrupted, what that tells us is that this is in front of this. This is part of our background. This is our foreground. But maybe this isn't the thing that we want in the front. Maybe we want to show that this is very far away. You can put other things in front of it. Sometimes you may want to draw clouds. They might be small, little, thin, wispy clouds. Or maybe the clouds that are getting closer, that are over us, are much bigger. Maybe we've got a little overlap there. You can erase that. And that helps give a sense that that is even further away, that there's more stuff in front of it. This is still feeling pretty empty though. So one way to create depth is to stack your shapes. Another thing you can do is create perspective. Now we'll start with 1 point perspective. 1 point means we pick 1 point. I'm going to start here. And most often when we do perspective, it's good to use a ruler. So maybe there is a road that leads way off there. And I'm going to move to the other side, but I'm still using that 1 point. That 1 point is what our eye focuses on, and if we use these lines that come together, using those lines gives the illusion of perspective. Now maybe we want to add a little bit more to that. Sometimes when we're driving down the road, you'll see really big power poles, right? Now one thing I've done is I've used a very thick line here for my pole. Okay, it's a very heavy line. Maybe I'll even add the cross brace for my power lines. All right, but the next one behind it is further away. So there's a couple of things that we can do to make it look further away. We can make it look smaller, but we have to do that evenly. So sometimes when we're doing perspective, if you're using pencil, it's really easy because you can erase. But I'm going to pick the bottom of my pole there, and I'm going to draw a line to help me remember where the bottom is supposed to be. Then I'm also going to do a line that tells me where the top is supposed to be. So I've got the bottom, I've got the top. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw the next power pole. Another thing we can do to make something look further away is not make it as heavy or as thick as the other one. So as we get further and further away, our lines maybe aren't as thick. And also, as we get further away, they're going to get closer together. if you wanted to draw your lines to connect power poles, you can do that too. So when we use 1-point perspective, everything has to go to that 1 point. There's also 2 and 3-point perspective, and I'll get to those in a little bit. So recap. We can overlap shapes to create depth. We can make some of them larger in the foreground or in the front of our picture to create depth. And we can use our lines and make things smaller or bigger for perspective. Since we went over color, another thing we can do is use color to tell us how close or how far away something is. But I'm going to switch over to colored pencils and crayons to show you how to do that. So now let's look at how we can use hue or color to show how far away or close something is. Maybe you want to start with a horizon line just to give you a reference. I'm going to do some mountains, some rolling hills here. And I'm going to press down pretty hard to make this a pretty dark blue. I'm going to keep using the same blue as I add more mountains. This next one, it's still fairly close, so it's also going to be dark. Maybe I want to make that front one a little darker, add in some more shading over here to fill out my picture. But as I add my next mountain in the background further away, I don't press down quite as hard. By making the mountains lighter as we go further away, it makes them look further and further away. Same thing, add another one, and it's not quite as light. You can barely see it. Then as you add in the sky, using that same blue, things will start to blend in a little bit more. Maybe you want to make something stand out even more in the very front. Go with an even darker color. I'm switching to purple. And I might bring that into some of my other shapes. But remember, what's in the very front is the darkest, and the further away we get, the lighter it is. Now, I mentioned earlier 2-point perspective. 2-point perspective is when we don't just use 1 point. We pick another point somewhere. Usually when we're starting out, we'll pick somewhere on our horizon. I have 2 points that I'm going to use. Now, I've got power poles. Maybe I want there to be a small building here. Now that's the corner of the building. But to help me figure out where the line is that goes to that point, I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier. I'm going to line up with my point, and this will tell me where the bottom of the building is. Now maybe I want my building to stop there. I'm going to make sure that I line up with the top of my building. And then I'll make sure that my line goes straight up and connects. So I've got one wall of my building. This is where 2-point perspective comes in. Now I'm going to use the other point to help me draw my other wall of this building. Sometimes it's good to just draw your line all the way across. And then, based on how big you want your building to be, you just draw a vertical line and then erase what you don't want to use. So for right now, I'm going to stick with that being a flat top building just to make things a little bit easier. But you can see now that by using 2 points for our perspective, you get to see more than one side of something. 1 point perspective helps when we're keeping things in line. 2 point perspective helps us create more of a three-dimensional image.